Good morning, I'm Craig DeGrelli. It's Tuesday, January 21st, 2025. These are your unbiased updates. Trump takes over. President Donald Trump mixes his inauguration with speeches, politics, and policy, immediately increasing border security, granting pardons to January 6th rioters, while rescinding Biden administration directives on climate change and DEI. And TikTok officially gets a reprieve. The length of time the owner of the super popular social media app has to make a deal to keep operating while allaying national security concerns involving China.
From the Straight Arrow News Studio, bringing the stories that matter to you from across the United States and around the world, these are today's Unbiased Updates.
Please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Donald John Trump, do solemnly swear.
I, Donald John Trump, do solemnly swear.
That I will faithfully execute.
That I will faithfully execute.
The office of President of the United States.
The office of President of the United States.
And will, to the best of my ability.
And will, to the best of my ability.
Preserve, protect, and defend.
Preserve, protect, and defend.
The Constitution of the United States.
The Constitution of the United States.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations, Mr. President.
With that oath at the U.S. Capitol Monday, Donald Trump became the 47th president of the United States, and it did not take long for him to get started on his agenda for the second term. During his 30-minute inauguration speech in the Capitol Rotunda, President Trump previewed how he would spend much of his first day in office.
Today, I will sign a series of historic executive orders. With these actions, we will begin the complete restoration of America and the revolution of common sense. It's all about common sense. First, I will declare a national emergency at our southern border. All illegal entry will immediately be halted, and we will begin the process of returning millions and millions of criminal aliens back to the places from which they came. We will reinstate my Remain in Mexico policy. I will end the practice of catch and release. And I will send troops to the southern border to repel the disastrous invasion of our country. Under the orders I signed today, we will also be designating the cartels as foreign terrorist organizations.
The president signed a series of executive orders throughout the day. First, on stage in front of a crowd at the Capital One Arena following what was an indoor parade, he rescinded numerous executive actions implemented under the Biden administration. After finishing, Trump tossed pens into the crowd of supporters. The president would follow that by signing more executive actions back at the White House, including pardoning most of the individuals convicted in connection with the riots at the Capitol on January 6, 2021, and ordering a delay on the ban on TikTok. We will have more on both of those actions coming up. But first, here's a look at some of the other executive actions Donald Trump took on day one in what he is calling a new golden age. He ordered flags to be flown at full staff on inauguration days. Flags had been lowered to half staff in honor of the passing of former President Jimmy Carter. Trump signed an order requiring all federal workers to return to work in person full time. The president issued a freeze on federal hiring with the exception of the military and other excluded departments. Two executive actions saw Trump withdrawing the United States from the Paris Climate Agreement and the World Health Organization. And he ordered construction of a wall at the southern border to restart after about 450 miles of the barrier was built during his first administration. President Trump signed an executive order ending birthright citizenship for children of parents who are unauthorized immigrants. Late Monday night, the ACLU filed a lawsuit challenging the order. Trump declared a national emergency on energy costs for Americans. He issued an order eliminating an Environmental Protection Agency rule to get car manufacturers to cut greenhouse gas emissions, the so-called electric vehicle mandate. Another order calls for the reopening of drilling for oil in parts of Alaska. President Trump signed an executive order making it federal government policy to recognize only two sexes, male and female. And another order calls for the elimination of all government programs that are part of diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives. A reminder, these were just some of the executive actions taken by the president, and it was just day one. One of the executive orders issued by President Trump on day one included the pardoning of hundreds of Americans who stormed the U.S. Capitol building as Congress tried to certify the 2020 election results on January 6, 2021. Here's Straight Arrow News reporter Kara Rucker with a closer look at this executive action.
President Trump pardoned roughly 1,500 people who were charged, arrested, and jailed for January 6 related crimes.
First, we have a list of pardons and commutations relating to events that occurred on January 6, 2021.
Okay, and how many people is this?
I think this order will apply to approximately 1,500 people, sir.
So this is January 6th. These are the hostages. Approximately 1,500 for a pardon.
Yes.
Full pardon.
In one of his first actions as the 47th president, Trump has granted clemency, including full, complete, and unconditional pardons for January 6 prisoners. Among those that are now freed, Enrique Tarrio, the former national leader of the Proud Boys, who was sentenced to 22 years behind bars for seditious conspiracy. The order also called on the DOJ to shut down its pending prosecutions of other January 6 related crimes. Trump asked the Bureau of Prisons to facilitate the releases immediately. The DOJ had charged about 1,600 people for having a role in the January 6 Capitol riot. While most were granted pardons, 14 people received commutations, which is a lesser form of clemency. It will still allow for their release from prison immediately, but they will have felony convictions on their records. One of those 14 people includes another high-profile January 6 case of Stewart Rhodes, the founder of the group Oath Keepers. This nearly blanket pardon aligns with Trump's calls for the prisoners' release that he made on the campaign trail, referring to the prisoners as hostages, patriots, and victims of political persecution. Former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi disagrees, condemning the president's pardon, saying the president's actions are an outrageous insult to our justice system and the heroes who suffered physical scars and emotional trauma as they protected the Capitol, the Congress, and the Constitution. Despite the president's decision, we must always remember the extraordinary courage and valor of the law enforcement heroes who stood in the breach and ensured that democracy survived on that dark day. A CBS poll released this month showed 72% of Republicans were in support of January 6 pardons, and 41% of Democrats supported the move.
That was Kara Rucker reporting. Before leaving the White House, outgoing President Joe Biden issued a series of last-minute preemptive pardons, including for Dr. Anthony Fauci and retired General Mark Milley, and members of the House committee that investigated January 6th. Biden also pardoned his siblings and their spouses in what appears to be a move to ward off any possible future prosecution, saying they had been, quote, subjected to unrelenting attacks and threats motivated solely by a desire to hurt me, the worst kind of partisan politics. Those pardons are under immense criticism this morning. Also within the first few hours of his new term, President Trump followed through on his promise to delay the enforcement on the TikTok ban. The executive order directs the Department of Justice not to enforce the law for at least 75 days. The law, passed during the Biden administration with strong bipartisan support, said TikTok's parent company, ByteDance, had to sell the social media platform to a buyer from America or one of its allies because of national security concerns, or be banned starting January 19th. More specifically, the concern was China might be able to influence or tap into American data through ByteDance and TikTok. The U.S. Supreme Court allowed the law to go forward last Friday. The Trump executive order says the 75-day delay will help his administration attempt to, quote, determine the appropriate course forward in an orderly way that protects national security while avoiding an abrupt shutdown of a communications platform used by millions of Americans. Longtime Florida Senator Marco Rubio is now Secretary of State Marco Rubio, making him the first official member of Trump's new cabinet. Senators voted unanimously Monday to approve the selection. The Republican has served on the Senate since 2011, and his nomination drew strong support from not just Senate Republicans, but Democrats as well, who say he's highly qualified for the job. Meantime, another one of Trump's cabinet nominees is one step closer to landing the role of Defense Secretary. Yesterday, the Senate Armed Services Committee voted to send Pete Hegseth's nomination to the Senate floor, but just barely. All 14 of the committee's Republicans voted in favor of Hegseth, while all 13 Democrats voted against him. The former Fox News host is a controversial pick because of allegations of sexual assault, alcohol abuse, and financial mismanagement, something the Army and Iraq war vet has denied, saying he's a changed man. At this point, not one Senate Republican has indicated they will vote no on Hegseth getting the job, meaning he likely will be the next Secretary of Defense. Another high-profile move yesterday, the U.S. Senate passed legislation known as the Laken-Riley Act. 12 Democrats crossed party lines to join all Republican senators in voting to send the immigration bill to the House. The measure would mandate the detention of more undocumented immigrants who are charged with crimes such as shoplifting. The act came to be after undocumented immigrant Jose Ibarra from Venezuela murdered Laken-Riley last year when she was out for a jog on the campus of the University of Georgia. Ibarra had previously received a misdemeanor for shoplifting, but no immigration action was taken. The House passed a similar bill earlier this month. The amended bill is expected to pass the House and become the first piece of legislation approved by President Trump in his new term. Finally this morning, a champion is crowned. Straight Arrow News sports reporter Chris Francis has a recap of last night's college football national championship game in Atlanta. In a word, Buckeyes.
Ohio State is the last team standing. The Buckeyes overpowered Notre Dame in Monday's national championship game, winning 34-23, fending off a late Irish comeback attempt. The Buckeyes also make history as the first winner of the 12-team playoff, and they earn their 9th championship overall. For Ohio State, the first 10 minutes did not go according to script. Notre Dame drove 75 yards to take a 7-0 lead. The Irish believed they had found a way to win the game, grind it out with the run, and run the clock. That strategy only worked on that opening drive.
You know, you look at the second series, we had 2 penalties, which ended up forcing us to punt. And in the third series, you know, we had the miscommunication with the muff snapped, and that's the end of the half. And so I think more than anything, it was 2 series after the first one. We didn't execute.
From there, it was mostly Ohio State. Will Howard threw a pair of touchdown passes and had the Irish searching for answers. They built a 31-7 lead, and after Quinshon Judkins scored his second of 2 touchdowns to start the third quarter, it looked like the game was over. Give Notre Dame credit for scoring twice in the final 18 minutes, but the hole was too deep. Ohio State finished the season with a 14-2 record, beating their 4 playoff opponents by an average of nearly 18 points a game.
You know, there was a couple times early where maybe I had to check it down, or maybe it wasn't, you know, perfectly how it's drawn up. But you want to, you know, just keep the ball moving, you know, and stay on schedule. And it may not always be pretty.
It's the Buckeyes' first national championship in a decade. They won the inaugural 4-team playoff in 2014. Ohio State fans quite vocal about a possible coaching change after the loss to Michigan in the regular season finale. Now they've earned the ultimate prize.
We responded to tough times, and man, isn't that what life's all about? You know, and these guys, you know, learned a bunch of life lessons, but they're going to go down in Ohio State history as some of one of the greatest teams to ever play at Ohio State. After all the things that have been said throughout the year.
As for how the 12-team playoff as a whole was received, the university presidents who oversee the tournament have asked conference commissioners to review how this first year went and recommend any changes. Those discussions will continue through the spring. For Straight Arrow News, I'm Chris Francis.
Well, they often call themselves the Ohio State University. Got to give them credit. They talk the talk, and last night they walked the walk. Those are your unbiased updates for this Tuesday. We'll see you back here tomorrow. For all of us here at Straight Arrow News, I'm Craig DeGrelli. Have a great day.